Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Tonight I want to show you a project that I'm working on. I'm actually finally creating my own web page. At least that's what I've started on working on right now. And I'm using Heroku to run my application, and also to run. I'm also using Heroku for the CI pipeline. I'm using. I both have a backend and also have a frontend. My backend is a Kotlin Ktor, and the frontend. And it could just as well have been Spring Boot. So if you're using Spring Boot, hang on. There's still a lot of cool tricks because you will have to do the same things, especially if you're using Gradle. So in this demo, I'm using the Gradle to make it all stick together. I'm also using Docker Multistage Build. This gives me the advantage that I'm not forced to use Heroku forever. I could use another platform to host my application. But this is how it looks right now. I've been playing with some SAS, some stylish style sheets, and but that is not what I'm going into right now. I just want to show you how this Vue app, and nothing happens when I press any of these buttons right here. It's just some cool CSS with some vacation pictures that I've taken myself. But what I want to talk about is the technology behind. So I've created a Heroku app. Of course, first I created a Heroku account, of course, and then I created a Heroku app, and then I joined this I hooked this one up to my GitHub. My GitHub repository. So the first thing I actually did was to create a GitHub repository. I pushed up some code, and then I hooked a new Heroku app to that. And then the next thing I actually did was I forwarded my Code Investigator domain to Heroku. There is a guide for that, but I want not to focus on that either right now. I want to focus on the basics of how to create this application right here, because it is a little bit tricky if you don't know how to. Let me just close all these files. This is my project. I created a new Ktor application by pressing File, New Project. I have the Ktor plugin installed in my IntelliJ, so then I could choose the Ktor. It's just like the Spring Initializer, it's just the Ktor instead. And then I ticked off the features that I actually wanted to. Right now I'm not using HTML DSL, I'm not using CSS DSL, I'm just using static contents, because that is where my Vue app will end up. It will end up as static content. I'm using routing also, so this one is also ticked off, and I think that's actually it. There's also some content negotiation. I want to have a backend that can deliver some data for my Vue app. Right now, my Vue app doesn't call the backend at all. I just want the infrastructure to be ready for whenever I get a good idea. Then I can create a cool backend endpoint, and then my Vue app can call that. So that is why I'm setting this up to begin with. So I actually have a Ktor app. Then what I did was I created a new folder called frontend right here. I used the Vue CLI to create this Vue app right here. And the special thing about this is that it actually comes along with a .git folder. You need to delete that .git folder so everything will be committed and pushed when you commit codes in the main projects. Of course, you can also use something called submodule, but in my case, I want to commit and have everything in the same repository. So you can delete the .git folder when it creates it with the Vue CLI. The Vue CLI is easily installed. I showed you that in an earlier video. If you're using Windows, there's a 64-bit installer. You can just download and run. If you're using Mac, there's a Brew installer. If you're using Ubuntu, there's a Snap installer. And if you're using Mint like I am, then there's actually a shell script for that. But just go to Vue CLI installation or install or something like that, and then you'll find the information for that. Or view my video that I made about Heroku earlier on. I also made some videos about Vue getting up and started, but I also installed Heroku CLI, of course, so I can follow the logs whenever I deploy something. Then I can tail the log. If you have a Vue app, the special thing about this is that I want this to be to have a root URL like this, which is frontend. And if you're used to Webpack, do not create that Webpack configuration file, because Vue CLI will actually create that Webpack file for you. So what you need to do is you need to configure Vue CLI instead, and that is done in the vue.config.js file. This file does not exist when you have created your project by default. So create that, write module.exports, and then set a public path like this. And there's some really good documentation. If you just search for Vue CLI config, then you'll get some really good configuration about the Vue CLI. So don't try to configure the Webpack, because that is part of the Vue pipeline and lifecycle. That it was actually the Vue CLI will actually try to create that in the end. If you create it anyway, then it will merge it in the end, and of course you can be lucky that the result is okay, but you can also be unlucky that the result is not okay. And this is the best practice way. Create a vue.config.js file instead of a Webpack file. Then the other thing I did was, of course, then I created some source code. I have my app right here, and then I have a component where right now I've just stuffed everything inside my welcome view, and then I have some assets up here where I have my styles that I'm playing around with, but I'll go into that later on. Just think about it is that I have a Vue app inside the frontend folder, and then I have my Kotlin Ktor application as backend right here, which wraps and encapsulates everything. If you're using Spring Boot, then this would be exactly the same. You would have a Spring Boot application, and then you would have your front-end folder right there. And then what is a little bit special here is that you should not create a proc file. Usually when we're dealing with Heroku, then you're creating a proc file, and then you say, okay, you just run the application like this. But if you do that, and if you use one of the existing Heroku build pack images, then you will not either you will not have your Java or Kotlin code compiled, or either you will not have your Vue application compiled. So you need to do some stuff manually, but that also gives you a strength that you can easily exchange Heroku with something else if you want to. Then you can actually use Jenkins or use another system for that. So I have created this Docker file right here. First, I have a builder Docker right there, which is the Alpine. Which is a Zulu OpenJDK Alpine 11 I'm using, and then I'm setting the node into dev. I don't need that. I think actually that was something I was playing around with, because if you can set this to dev or production, and then you can have your Vue application actually act differently. But yeah, so ignore that line actually. Then I'm creating a new folder, opt projects. Then I set the work directory to that folder. Then I am running apk add Node.js and npm. That's because I need to build my front-end application. And since this is a JDK image, then I don't have Node, I don't have npm installed, but it is easily installed with apk add Node.js and npm. Then I copy all of this, then I copy the whole project into the opt project folder. And after that, then I set this again, and again, this is because I've been playing around with some stuff. So let me just delete that actually. And I also want to comment this. It's because, yeah, that's what happens when we develop, right? Then we try different stuff out, but that was not necessary. So I'm copying everything in right there, and then I use the Gradle wrapper. That means that the Gradle is being downloaded automatically within the Docker container, and that means that you do not need to have Gradle installed at all. And this is really, really cool. The Gradle wrapper, it rocks. When I'm done with this, when I run Gradle clean build, what actually happens is my front end will actually be compiled and will actually be built and ready for distribution. That means that I will get a dist folder, and that is because I have tweaked my build.gradle file to do that. So that means that I will both have created my front end. My front end will be placed in the static folder on the resources. Then I have a static folder here, so that is where my Vue folder will end up. Again, this is because I've tweaked my build.gradle file. I will show you how to do this in just a minute. So what happened is, first my front end will be compiled, then it will be placed under resource static in the build process, and then in the end my jar file with my Kotlin Ktor code will then be built and wrapped up, and it will actually be created as a runnable jar. That means that it will have a manifest file that says which class to run. So after that, then I am this is my production image then. So then I use, this is the 11 JRE, that means that it's just the runtime environment. It's much smaller than the JDK image that I'm using up here. And this is what makes it a multi-stage build. First, I'm creating my jar file right here. Then I'm creating the production image afterwards. And I'm naming this production. I did not have to do that, I think, because I don't know if Heroku actually expects this to be production, but I'm not referring to it any place in my Docker file, so I did not need to do that. It's just to make it a bit more explicit. This, on the other hand, I need to do that because I need to refer to it right here. I'm copying from the builder image. Then I'm copying this jar file right there, and I'm copying it into the root, and then to app.jar right there. And then I'm creating an entry point right here, java jar app.jar, and then if everything works fine, then then of course then it just starts up. So let us look at the build.gradle file. So this is the Docker part right here. So the build.gradle file, there's some magic in there. First of all, I actually added this task stage right here. I don't think I need that right now because now I'm using Docker multi-stage build. But just before that, I actually needed this stage. I needed to create this stage right here. That was actually what Heroku called automatically. But right now, I don't think we need it right now. I need to try it out, of course, because right now I'm using the Docker multi-stage build instead. But if you need it, then it's actually just the same as a clean build. Then I am copying, look right here, process resources depends on copy frontend to build. So that means that when my build task is being run, then of course there's also process resources somewhere in the pipeline, somewhere in the task list. And that actually depends on copy frontend to build. And this is a task I've created myself. And this inside this one, it actually depends on npm builds. So that means that the first thing that will actually happen is that we will try to build the Vue app. But my Vue app actually depends on npm install, and that's because there's a lot of dependencies like the Vue CLI that we need to install first. So that means that this task will be the first one to be called, and it's actually just a command line npm install that will be run. After that, then we will call npm run build, and after that, then we will take all the files from the dist folder inside frontend, inside Vue, inside dist. We'll take all those files right there. Then we will copy them into the build directory. This is the build directory, and we'll copy them into resources, main, and static. So that means that then I will have all my files right there. So that is the extra magic that I've added to this Ktor Build Gradle Build file. Another thing, my Ktor app, I had to do some small things right there. One thing is that in the routing section right here, then I have to expose I'm exposing all my static resources, and I'm setting a default resource index.html. I'm exposing that as frontend. So that means that this frontend right here, it needs to match whatever you set in the frontend application in the Vue config right here. So if you write something else right here, if you write frontend version 1, something like that, then you also need to write frontend version 1 or something right in the application KT file right here, where you define your static resources. If you don't know much about Ktor, then you're defining all your routes right here. That is what you in Spring Boot, you will have a REST controller for each of these. You will have a method for each of these. And of course, in Spring Boot, the static folder is per default exposed, so you don't need this part if you're using Spring Boot. But instead, I'm creating a redirect right here, so that means that I'm getting the root path right here, and then I redirect and say it's not permanent, but I want to redirect to frontend and then index.html, which is the beginning of my Vue application. Then I have a hello right here. That's just to see that, just to check if stuff is working. And that's actually it. So it is not that much again when you know what to set. Oh, that's not true. There's actually one more thing, because as I told you, we could not use the proc file to Heroku. So how does Heroku know that I want to use Docker Multistage Build? It does that from the Heroku.yml. So I actually have to create this YML right here. Let me just delete out all our commented code. Then I can see right here that I want to build it from the Docker file. If my Docker file was located somewhere else than in the root, then of course I would have to give the right path to my Docker file instead. And this is the command that will be run inside the resulting Docker image. So, and that's actually it. So we need this Heroku.yml when we are dealing with Heroku and when we're dealing with Docker Multistage Build. If I wanted to, I could of course commit this code right now. Then I could say something like cleanup, because I deleted some outcommented stuff. Commit and push. Let us see what happens. Pushing, and then while we're doing this, I want to go and say Heroku. And I want to say logs -1 tail -a, and then code investigator -web, like this. This is the application name. Because then I can actually see right here, build started by user and then mmni@proton.com. And this is my email address. If anything goes wrong, then I'll get an email to this sent to my Proton mail account right there. Another thing, we can also see that it's building right here. You can see the right side that's building. I can see the log file, what is going on. Okay, I think I timed out the session because I had this opened for too long. Let's just check what's going on. Refresh it all. Yeah, now I get the log file. And because it's a multi-stage build, and also because it has to download the Gradle version every time, I have not found any good solution for this right now. But right now, I'm not looking into tweaking or performance optimizing my multi-stage build. But of course, I should do that actually. So it actually takes some time. So if you're used to Heroku, if you're used to having maybe a plain Spring Boot application, or just a plain Gradle application without anything special about it, then this will of course take much longer, this approach, because at first it has to build and it has to install all the npm. We also have to install Node, and we have to install npm. We have to to download the Gradle wrapper, the dependencies. Then we have to download all the npm, all the dependencies for my Vue application, and then it has to compile the Vue application. Then it has to compile the Java files after that, and also the Kotlin files. Of course, I only have Kotlin files right now. There was only one .kt file. So right now it's running npm install. It looks okay. I can also go look here. Is my application still working while it's building? No, I don't think so. It's not up and running right now. No, it's not. So let us just see what happens right here in my Heroku application. So now it's using the shadow jar. If you don't know, then the shadow jar, that's a plugin where you can actually choose how to pack your jar file. So it would be a fat jar. Oh, build successful. Okay. So far so good. Dismiss. I had to debug a little bit to find an error, so that is why this video actually just jumped there. I had to add this. I had to set this node environment to dev again, or else the Vue app would not be built correctly. I have to look into that, but I need to set the node into dev right now when I'm building the Vue application. Or else it was only the Ktor application that was okay. But nevertheless, actually, my application, it actually runs again now. It's this is my website right now. I will continue doing. I'll continue do some cool stuff with this application, and then I'll also make videos about it. Like I want to forward the Code Investigator domain, but I'll create a separate video about that, how to do that, because you can use the Heroku client or you can also use the UI. But I hope this gave you a feeling of what is needed if you want to create a Docker multistage build with a Vue application, which we have right here, frontend. This could also be React or Angular, if you prefer that. Of course, the way to go ahead. This is kind of the same. This code will not be available as usual, so I might create a demo project at some point so you can get the code, because I'm using this for my website also. But thank you very much for watching. Have a great evening. Hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.